We're starting Be'ezras Hashem Siman Samach Gimel Vayoel Moshe, and the subject is the Gemara in Sukkah says that it's possible the Beis Hamikdash could be built on Yom Tov, and the problem is, how could that be? Even if you say that it's going to come down Midas Shamayim, but there has to be some kind of binyan b'dei Adam first, as it says that Mashiach will build it. So the question is, how could that happen on Yom Tov? So the Aruch LaNer in Samach Aleph, he brought down, Aruch LaNer wanted to say that there's a Gemara in Shabbos Daf Tzadik Hey, I think. Gemara in Shabbos says that making cheese is boina. Okay? So, since on Yom Tov you're allowed to make cheese, so boina becomes a malacha shel oichel nefesh. And once it's oichel nefesh, we say mitoich shutu l'tzorich, shutu shelo l'tzorich. So building on Yom Tov is not really an issa deraisa, and therefore for the Beis Hamikdash we can be matir it. That was the Aruch LaNer's pshat. So he says like this: Vanir la'afiyah nis daiti, dihinei apoiskim hevinu, that Tosfos ve'Rambam pligi bozeh. The Poskim understand that there's a machlokes Tosfos in the Rambam about this inyan. The Tosfos says this pshat in Shabbos Daf Tzadik Hey, but the Rambam argues. He says the Vadas that Tosfos binyan b'Yom Tov eino yala midrabanan. Tosfos holds that building on Yom Tov is only drabanan.
Not the Rambam holds deraisa.
Right. The mutter minat Torah mitam mitoich. Minat Torah it's mutter because you say mitoich. The ones that malacha was mutter for food, it's mutter for everything. The Rambam Zal, the pasuk behedya. The Rambam says it openly in Hilchos Yom Tov, the loikin al isra binyan b'Yom Tov, that if someone builds a house on Yom Tov, he gets malchus. So he argues on Tosfos. But the problem is, kasha love, it's going to be shver on the Rambam. L'choyer kushta Tosfos, the name of mitoich. You're going to ask on the Rambam, the Tosfos kasha, that why don't we say mitoich? Why taka not? Mitoich means that once something becomes mutter for food on Yom Tov, it's mutter for all things. Like you can carry your talis to shul on Yom Tov.
Yeah.
Even though you're not doing it for food. But once carrying is mutter to bring food to your house on Yom Tov, so it's mutter for
any other
purposes. Any other tzarech. So that's the problem that has the Rambam going to deal with Tosfos kasha. Except v'zeh echad min harayos shehevi pri chadash. The pri chadash.
Who is the pri chadash?
He was an Achro and he wrote on Shulchan Aruch about 250 years ago.
Yeah.
So he brings a raya from this. The Rambam Zal eino soiver mitoich. Eino soiver mitoich. The Rambam doesn't hold it mitoich ki'im b'hoitza v'havara, except by those two malachas of carrying and burning a fire.
Also shchita.
No, not shchita.
The Rambam is not shchita?
No, you can't do it by shchita. You can only do it by carrying, like carry talis to shul, and bring a fire, like so they get light in your house.
But we pass you could shecht on Yom Tov. Do we pass
you that way? You could shecht on Yom Tov, but you can't do it for other things. That's what mitoich means. That once it's mutter for food, it's mutter for other things too. Yeah. So the Rambam only holds that by those two malachas. The loika Rav Magid, and this way of learning the Rambam is not like the Rav Magid's way. This Yaseh and his colleagues who learn the Rambam that he does say mitoich by other malachas. Okay, but the Pri Chadash is saying no. The Rambam says mitoich only by these two, but not by boina. So therefore, even though making cheese is mutter, but making a house is aser. All right. V'achsam soifer b'chidushav l'masech debeya beitza b'sugi l'mitoich hevi raya l'divrei Rambam. That the Chasam Sofer brings a raya to the Rambam who holds that you can't build on Yom Tov. Midamrinu masech Shevuos daf tesvavam beis ein binyan Beis Hamikdash doich Yom Tov. This is Maamar what we're talking about, that building Beis Hamikdash on Yom Tov is aser, right? So why don't we say like Tosfos that you can build it because it's only D'Rabbanan? So that's the raya to the Rambam that holds that it's aser. Umisham l'choyer kusha ala Tosfos. Okay, so just to review what we have here, we have the Rambam holding that binyan on Yom Tov is aser midiraisa. Tosfos holds it's mutter midiraisa. The problem with the Rambam is Tosfos kasha from the cheese, but we say that the answer is the Rambam doesn't hold mitoich. And the problem with Tosfos is the Gemara in Shevuos says the building of the Beis Hamikdash is aser on Yom Tov. Okay. Aval lafi ani is daiti yesh l'tarit shnehem. That we could answer up both the Rambam and Tosfos. Divrei Tosfos ve'Rambam. V'loi kasha midi atarvayu. That both kashas are answered on both of them. Why? The hinei apnei Yeshua kasav l'tarit kusha al Rambam. Shemechai v'boyne b'Yom Tov. That the Pnei Yeshua, I guess it's on Masech Shabbos, I didn't look it up, but Probably when Tosfos asked this kasha that building on Yom Tov should be mutter, the Pnei Yeshua says, but the Rambam doesn't hold like that. So he says, we don't say that it's mutter because of mitoich, because of the cheese. This is what the Pnei Yeshua says. The near lefianis daiti the hadi amrin megaben chayev mishum boine. That when we say that making cheese is boine, hainu davka megaben loitzer. That's only when you're making a lot of cheese at once. You're making a whole oitzer of cheese. Kind of like when you pick your whole field, right? So you make your whole oitzer of cheese, liyabish, to make it, to dry it out, and I guess that's what they did with cheese. They dried it out and they used it for long-term use. Lahatzniya liyom rabim. Then you have in mind to make the cheese like a strong building.
The cheese
dry,
is commonly made
hard.
because cheese can stay fresh for a while, not like milk which spoils quickly. So cheese, so therefore milk was commonly made. The cheese, so the cheese will then stay fresh long.
Right. So there were like dry cheeses and soft cheeses. The dry cheese was the one that stayed a long time, and that you didn't make it for your Yom Tov Suda.
Right.
You
In
made
fact,
it for
a lot of cheeses are aged for a long time, longer than the day of Yom Tov itself. Like cottage cheese, you can make it one day.
Right.
But like a lot of cheeses will usually take quite some time to make. Cottage cheese, like some cheese was made quickly.
So this is sort of what he's going to answer. He's saying that when you make cheese for a long-term period, you're building it, you're making a binyan, Laman Yamdu Yom Ramen, then that binyan is going to stay for a long time. Yeah, so there's Mashenkin Asiyas Givinois Shehuter B'Yamtiv. When is the mutter to make cheese on Yom Tov? Al Korcha Chaynu Lechol Alta. That's only the kinds of cheese that you eat right away. Obviously, because otherwise, why would you be mutter to make it? That's not called binyan because the potter. It's not any different from building a building that you're going to take down in 1 minute. It's potter.
Because cottage cheese is made through boiling milk, actually, so it's more of a bishul type way of doing it.
Yeah, that's not really what we're talking about. I think we're talking about more hard cheeses.
Because cottage cheese is still a cheese, nonetheless, it's still classified as one.
Right. So the Pnei Yeshua is saying,
and American cheese didn't use in that time.
Yeah, but I think that the Pnei Yeshua is saying that even though the cheese you're making for today is hard, it's still not considered a binyan because you don't mean that it should stand forever.
Right, but
we don't find that real binyan, long-term binyan, is mutter for eating on Yom Tov. And therefore you don't have a kasha that we say mitoich shuta l'tzorich, you should build your house on Yom Tov. The Pnei Yeshua says that in my opinion it's clear that to make this chiluk I just didn't find anyone else saying this part, Pnei Yeshua says. So Pnei Yeshua is a little bit uncertain about it because he never found anybody else saying it. But he wants to say on his own that building for temporary use is takamutta. Ad kan l'shoynai. B'chsam sofer b'chidushav dachazeh. B'chsam sofer brings this Pnei Yeshua and he rejects it. Yeah, he says b'maj shekasav alav v'lo yadati moitze zeh adin. B'chsam sofer said, I don't know where Pnei Yeshua got this din from. She mutter lifrois oil amanas listor, that you can make a roof.
Right, we don't pitch a tent even, like we don't carry an umbrella in them and open it because it's pitching a tent.
No, but that could be midrabanan. The umbrella is like an oil arai. But I'm talking about an oil kavua that you're going to build, that you're going to knock down in another 2 days later. That's not okay. So va'ani tama al chsam sofer. Some Rebbe says I don't understand how the chsam sofer could say this. Shekasav shaloi matzah makor lazeh, that he never found any source for this Pnei Yeshua. Gama Pnei Yeshua shaloi matzah b'shum makom l'chalik b'chach. The Pnei Yeshua never found anyone who said this before him. And the question is on both of them that there is a place where it says it. Where? What's the place? There's 2 Yerushalmis here, the Masechta Shabbos. Both of them are Masechta Shabbos. Perek Klal Gadol, Halacha Beis, in the 7th Perek of Shabbos there. Uvereish Perek Haboyna, Halacha Aleph. V'zel Hashoynai, the same thing in both places. Ma binyan paya b'mishkan. The Yerushalmi asks, where do they do binyan in the Mishkan? Because all the Lamates Malachas are learnt out from the Mishkan. So the Yerushalmi says, Shahayu noistim kroshim al gabe adonim. That they used to, they had the sockets on the bottom, and they put the boards of the Mishkan into the sockets, and that was binyan. It's a fact the Yerushalmi v'loy l'shah haisa. That was a temporary binyan, so it shouldn't be oscar midaraisa. So on Rabbi Yossi answered, Kivan shahayu chaynim v'noisim al pia dibur, since when Klal Yisrael camped and when they traveled, it was based on the command of Hashem. So kami shehu la'olam, it's as if it was la'olam. If Hashem said camp here, He doesn't say how long He's going to tell you to camp here. For all you know, Hashem's going to keep you here forever. Okay, the next day He could say move, but today He's staying camp here, so that's called a permanent binyan. Okay? Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Bun, Mekivan she'ivtichan HaKadosh Baruch Hu shehu machnisan la'aretz. So Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Bun argues. He says, no. Once Hashem promised them that He's going to bring them into Eretz Yisrael, kami shehu l'shah. So he says, no, it is l'shah. It is temporary because Hashem's not going to keep them here in the midbar forever. He tells them camp here. Everybody knows it's not going to be forever. So it's l'shah. So hada amra. So it must be binyan l'shah binyan. The building for temporary use is binyan, Yuyin Sham. So we have a beferish machlokes here in the Yerushalmi, whether binyan l'shah is binyan, right? First man the Amr holds binyan l'shah is not binyan, and the one building the Mishkan in the midbar was like a permanent binyan because Hashem could tell him to stay there. And the second man the Amr says no, binyan l'shah is binyan. So in Kain Sfaras Apnei Yeshua, the binyan l'shah lo have a binyan. This Bnei Yeshua that says that building on Yom Tov for temporary purposes, taking it down later, is not a binyan. He plucked the mivueres b'Yushalmi. It's an open machlokes in this Yushalmi. V'loi kasha mishar malachos. Don't ask me a kasha that other malachos that we don't find such a distinction being made. Ela afal rega achas have malacha, that usually for every malacha, let's say you stitch something up, right, with the thread. You weave. Any of the malachas and lamates malachas, if you do it and you break it 10 minutes later, it's still a malacha. Okay? Yeah. Doesn't matter. So over here, why are we saying that if you build a house and you break it down later, it's not a malacha? He says the Yesh Loimar that you could say the teretz is like this: the shani binyan. Building is different. She'eno nikra binyan elamash yesh lekvias. That building is only called binyan when it's going to be permanent. Al ez is man, at least for some amount of time. Not permanent forever, but permanent for a certain amount of time. K'mo she'en binyan istir b'kelim. That's why we say there's a man de'amar that says there's no building and no destroying by kelim. She'en davar kavua, because kelim don't stay forever. V'chein b'kesher, kosher. The malacha of tying is also the same thing. That if you tie your shoes and you untie later, that's not called kosher midaraisa. The inyan kesher havirak keshehu kesher shel kayama. That's only a permanent knot. Mashen hibishar malachis, but all the other lamites malachis is not like that. Shenim kagavna. That it's called baking even if you bake for now, and it's called boiling. You know, you're going to boil the water, you're going to unboil it later, let it cool off. Doesn't matter. So you see in this Yerushalmi a source for the Pnei Yeshua. Okay? That the question is even bigger on the Chsam Sofer. You could say maybe the Pnei Yeshua didn't know the Yerushalmi. Okay, but the Chsam Sofer did know the Yerushalmi. Because you see, B'Shevet Shuvaisav, or Chaim Siman Ayin Beis, Hevi Divrei Yerushalmi. The Chsam Sofer himself brings down this Yerushalmi, Ho'elu. V'Ichriya, La'alacha, and he paskins, Kedasaman Di'omer B'Yerushalmi de Binyan L'Shah Lo Yave Binyan. He paskins like the first shita, that binyan, temporary binyan, is not a binyan. So, V'kan B'Chidushav Kasev Shalem Matzah Shum Mekar L'Davar. Over here on this Chidushim on Masechta Shabbos, when he's asking on this Pnei Yeshua, he says no, he doesn't find any Mekar for such a thing. So the question is, why didn't he find this Yerushalmi? Yeah? So, kind of leaving off in the middle here, but that's where things are holding. Basically, there's this Yerushalmi, Binyan L'Shah is not a Binyan. Just to give you a sneak peek, what he's going to say is that building the Beis HaMikdash, you might have guessed, building the Beis HaMikdash, Lasi Lavoi, is not a temporary Binyan, because it's not a permanent Binyan. Because when we build the Beis HaMikdash, and then Hashem is right away Mevatel it, and brings down from Shemayim the Beis HaMikdash, comes out that what we build is going to be temporary. So that's why it's going to be Mutter and Yom Tov. Hashem in the previous Bati Mikdashas, by Rish and by Sheni, were permanent. Whatever they built stood. More than one didn't stand forever, but it stood for a long time.
It was our intention.
So that's why, and it was their intention, right? So therefore, it is a malacha of boyin. So that's why the Gemara in Shevuos says ain't boyin in Beis Hamikdash b'yontif. But the future Beis Hamikdash is different. That's what he's leading up to here.